Welcome to today's video where we delve into the incredible story of a man who died in a tragic car accident. As the car spun out of control, John braced for impact. When he opened his eyes, he found himself staring down at his lifeless body below. But just as he was about to despair, a strange alien appeared before him, claiming to have knowledge of everything. John was given a choice: to stay in this unknown world or return to his life on Earth. Little did he know, this decision would change the course of his fate forever. So sit tight and let's unfold the mysteries of his journey together. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more intriguing stories like this. So much of it is stated so casually. One can't help but wonder if the thing he couldn't see was really the kid he claimed he had to return for in order to fulfill his life's purpose. On a Sunday in the middle of April 1989, I was making my way back to my house from a trade show at a resort. As I was driving, I reflected on the lovely early spring day and the trees' emerging leaves. It was a beautiful day with a temperature of about 75 degrees Fahrenheit. I was on the highway heading north. I was glad to be going home after having to work the trade show that weekend. However, I have never been able to recall the name of the song that was playing on the radio. My longtime friend had asked me to be a groomsman in his wedding that weekend, but the boss said I couldn't take the day off. Although I was sorry to have missed the wedding and not been able to see my friend, I couldn't help but think of him throughout the day. As I was driving, I wondered how the service went because I knew my friend would be at the reception at around that time. On a gravel road in the west, I noticed a car traveling toward the double-lane divided highway. I observed the vehicle cross the southbound lanes of traffic, proceed through the center median toward the stop sign that controlled traffic on that small road, and then cross the northbound lanes of traffic. When I turned around, I saw that the car had never slowed down at the stop sign before swerving across the southbound lanes of traffic. The car continued straight through the stop sign into the northbound lanes of traffic, which is where I was at the time, rather than stopping at the stop sign before crossing. It's strange how perceptions can change when under pressure, looking back on the experience. My imagination pictured a massive Lincoln town car from the mid-1970s. I was operating a much more compact vehicle. The only explanation I've been able to come up with for this error of judgment. The car was actually not a huge car, but rather a mid-size mid-80s, mid-size Oldsmobile. Is that it was so close that my mind mistook it for a large model. I did, however, correctly identify the color. Green covered it. Everything slowed to the speed of slow motion. I cursed out loud or in my head. I still think I said it, but given the short amount of time I spent in this part of the experience, I think my mind was working so quickly that I just assumed I had. I remember pulling the gear shift back with my right hand. Even though it wasn't automatic, the movement will cause the car's transmission to change to a lower gear when the speed is appropriate for the car to do so, as it does in most American cars. I simultaneously made a sharp left turn with the steering wheel, as the green car was traveling from my left to my right. I distinctly recall thinking, if I can just hit this car in the rear axle, it will spin the car on the front axle out of my way, and maybe the elderly man operating the vehicle and the elderly woman in the passenger seat, who I could clearly see, will survive this thing. Then, my mind processed the image of them in a car being struck square in the passenger door by my car after it had spun on its front axle. In my memory, the only sound was the wind. But that's really odd. Where's the wind? I remember thinking. Okay, there won't be any sound until the cars collide, I reasoned. I then questioned why my vehicle wasn't turning. Nothing happened despite my hard left-hand turns of the wheel. As the cars drew closer, I came to the conclusion that there was nothing I could do to change how this incident turned out. When I arrived, it was already happening all around me. I had never before realized that, and it was also the last time I would ever do so. I observed the passengers in the other car drawing nearer and nearer, first by a few feet and then by inches. The woman was turning slightly in his direction and, from what I could tell, talking to him as the man stared forward through the windshield. In her right hand, close to her right ear, she was holding what I assumed to be a small transistor radio. I remembered thinking, I haven't seen a radio like that since around 1971. As soon as contact was made, and sure enough, I heard the sound of the impact. Steam from my car's bursting radiator immediately blocked my view of the other people. I clearly recall knowing that to be the case. My car started to slowly spin in a westward direction. The steam completely obscured my vision, and I distinctly recall thinking, all I really need is for a trailer to plow into us with this going on, boy. I'd sure like to see that one coming. I then reasoned that since the wind was coming from the west and my car was spinning from north to west, the steam would probably stop obstructing my vision as soon as it reached a point where it had spun facing southwest. Indeed, the steam was carried out of my field of vision when the car swung around to face the southwest, allowing me to see down the highway from the direction I had just come from. Man, am I lucky there isn't a truck barreling toward us. I recall thinking. My car then came to a stop. Man, I've got to get out of here, I thought when I noticed that my car had stopped moving. I recall making a bowing motion with my head and chin, and then hearing a loud foofing sound. I remember feeling as if I was foofed, like I was a spit, wood being quickly forced through a straw. The only way I can describe that sound is like that made when you lock your lower lip behind your upper teeth and blow your lip back out into normal position. Koofing. I could actually feel the foofing. Was next to the driver's door of my car, standing. For lack of a better word, the elevation was about right, and I seemed to be generally vertical in orientation to the rest of the world. Hey, that's me, and I'm kind of a mess, I thought as I turned to face the guy sitting there. Fortunately, nothing appears to have been torn from the body. Everything appears to be in place. Nevertheless, the animal is dead. I had spent about a year and a half working in a funeral home, so I was quite familiar with bodies and how they appeared when they were dead. I quickly turned around when I heard a voice behind me. There, for lack of a better word, were two of my friends who had perished in a car accident in 1983. Since they were always inseparable, it was fitting that they were together when they died, and the three of us were closer than brother and sister. I attended both funerals and made a promise to myself that, if it was possible, I would really like for those two women to come pick me up when I passed away. They were in fact present. Looking back, it's amazing that I wasn't even mildly surprised to see them there. I recall casually introducing myself to Lisa and Susan as though I had just met them in the student union during a break in class by saying, for lack of a better word, I believe I was saying, "Hey Lisa, hey Susan." I started describing my body to Lisa. I sort of nodded toward myself sitting in the car and said, "Hey Lisa, get a load of this," sort of amused by the situation. I recall experiencing complete and utter freedom. There aren't really words to express this sensation, but I suddenly realized that the laws of physics didn't apply to me in this state, and that I could do whatever I wanted and go anywhere. I came to the realization that I could even visit the Eiffel Tower if I so desired, although I don't remember ever wanting to visit the Eiffel Tower or even thinking about it before this, other than perhaps to consider how to respond to a question on a geography quiz from the 5th grade. I started to enjoy my current state of well-being, which I still miss today. "Brian, you need to pay close attention." "Did she say there isn't much time?" Lisa said. Or was that just thought? Inferred knowledge. It's difficult to describe exactly how talking, moving, standing, etc. is done in this state, but Lisa continued, "You must look," and she pointed, or rather directed my attention in some other manner, to the western horizon. I noticed that everything appeared to be muted, much like a television with poor reception. Occasionally, a blob of color would break up the black and white, but for the most part, everything was in black and white. But my life was in the sky. I was feeling it like I was in the life and standing with Lisa and Susan at the same time, not just seeing it like I was watching it on a movie screen, widescreen, in color, on a video cassette recorder that was stuck in fast forward. My life literally played out from the moment I was born until I died. Immediately following this life screen event, I was given time to form my own opinions about life. I was aware that there had been other lives at that precise time. When they were finished, I read identical or similar reviews, but I wasn't interested in these other lives because they were over and no longer mattered, because I had already finished them. I was aware that once it was over, this life would no longer matter. I came to understand that I was an expert. There were no questions. All information was immediately available in my mind. For instance, I was aware that everything produced in any state was a component of a vast idea. Even though this is all I can remember, I remember being able to explore that vast idea from the inside and feel like I was a part of everything when I first thought of it. I find it confusing. I was aware that this was the reality of my situation. I had been using the lifeless piece of meat inside the car for a while, when I suddenly realized that I was a creature or being. However, I experienced some sadness for my body because it had served me well and seemed to be a waste to be of no further use. Similar to how it feels to trade in a car. In our time, a span of about 20 seconds. None of this seemed to take very long. In that time, everything that happened to me that I thought of happened. Lisa communicated, or rather said, "You must listen with urgency." She continued, "You have done enough to be able to go with us, or you can stay. But if you stay, we need to know why, and you have to tell us. You need to know why, and you have to tell us. You need to understand that staying will be extremely difficult." I stated unequivocally I must stay. Lisa inquired why. I confessed, "I don't have any kids yet." This was significant, but it wasn't emotionally charged. It was more like a house that I needed to paint the windows. But it started raining as I was telling someone this. Lisa was the only one who spoke during this. And although I knew Susan hadn't, I still noticed that someone else was present. I became aware that this person was paying close attention, and that I was not permitted to see him or her. This person was hidden from my consciousness and only manifested as a massive presence that could only be perceived as waves of distortion. For an illustration of this, watch the Arnold Schwarzenegger film Predator and pay close attention to the alien's appearance when it is cloaked. I could sense that impact. I didn't feel threatened by this, and I didn't want to use a movie example of a terrifying, cunning alien to influence the listener. Instead, I just wanted to make a reference to the visual distortion used. There was only a realization of this presence. There were no feelings of danger. You must understand that your heart stopped when you hit the steering wheel, but you won't be permanently hurt as a result of this, Lisa said. You'll suffer a broken sternum, a cut on your finger, and a few tooth losses. As soon as I said okay, I heard foof. I was initially perplexed because of the darkness. I had no idea where I was. Next, I heard what sounded like a distant boom. After a brief period of silence, there was another boom, followed by 3 more that were closer together. Then, after hearing 2 heartbeat sounds, I understood that the booming was actually my heart beating. Why is my heart starting at that? I recalled thinking. Then it dawned on me that I desperately needed to take a breath. Imagine how it would feel to discover that you didn't make it to the surface before running out of air. It's similar to the feeling you get when you're deep underwater and unsure of whether you'll make it to the surface before running out of air. I exhaled in the longest, deepest gasp I can ever remember. When it was finished, I looked around, saw my hand start to bleed, and then I opened my eyes. I won't go over every detail of the accident, but I kept slipping in and out of consciousness. I frequently heard conversations but was unable to respond. People have touched my neck at least 3 times that I can recall and said, "This one's gone." He leaped back and shouted, "Hey, this one's alive, get over here." When I finally raised my head and spoke to a state trooper who was bent over at the driver's door of my car copying my VI, number off my dash, I can still picture an empty in my car and the vibration of the extraction tools. I can still hear myself saying, "Get that fucking camera out of my face," to a television camera. I recall a female emergency medical technician sitting next to me on a bench while we were in an ambulance. I distinctly recall asking her, "Exactly where are we?" "You're in an ambulance," she said. "No," I replied, "exactly where on the road are we and how far from the city?" "There is only a small window, so I'm afraid I have no way of knowing," she said. I can still hear myself saying, "That's fine. I'll go outside and look." I remember looking out the side of the ambulance and noting that we were almost to a rock quarry that I always used as a landmark. "We're almost to the rock quarry. Good, we're getting close," I said as I exited the ambulance through the side. "Oh, I see it," Yes, but how? The emergency medical technician stood up and said as she approached a small window on the side of the ambulance. When she sat back down, she didn't say anything else besides, "You just lay quiet. We're almost there before leaving. You look much better than you did a while ago," the emergency medical technician from inside the car said when he later arrived in the emergency room. I told him I was feeling better. He claimed, up until now, "In all the years I've been doing this, I have never checked anyone and been wrong about whether they were living or dead." "Who says you were mistaken?" I asked him. Earlier, he gave off a worried appearance, but now he grinned, said, "You be cool, man," and walked away. As I had informed people at the scene and in the emergency room that I had a broken sternum, a cut on my finger, and that I would lose 2 teeth, a nurse questioned me about my background in the medical field. I informed her that I didn't work in medicine. My hand cut, broken sternum, and need for 2 root canals on my teeth were all things I overcame. But while I was in the hospital, I had such a hard time falling asleep that every time I did, I could feel myself starting to float out of my body, and I thought I was dying again and knew I was supposed to stay. So I would wake myself up. Wow, what a truly incredible journey it has been exploring these near-death experiences. These stories have given us a glimpse into the beauty and power of the human spirit and have reminded us of the preciousness of life. If you're looking for more life-changing content that will leave you inspired and reflective, then you simply cannot miss the next video in our series. This video will take you even further down the rabbit hole of self-discovery and enlightenment. It is truly a must-watch. So what are you waiting for? Don't miss out on this opportunity to continue your journey of growth and enlightenment. Click this video now